I was 3 minutes old when I met my psycho-adopted brother. For the second time in our last life. He destroyed my sister, broke her legs, shattered her mind. But here's the thing. I know that she didn't. He can hear your thoughts. So when he stared into my bassinet with those cold amber eyes, I didn't scream. I didn't flinch. I opened my tiny baby mind and said, "Big brother, your hands look cold. Do you want to hold me?" And for the first time in his life, someone said the right thing. The psycho-adopted brother. The one who nearly destroyed my sister in our last life. In the previous round, he'd been a shadow over her entire existence. Cold, controlling, terrifying. By the time she finally escaped his grip, her legs were ruined and her mind was shattered. Now he was standing over my bassinet. Amber eyes fixed on me with an unreadable expression. I didn't flinch. I couldn't. I was literally 3 minutes old. But internally I was already working. "Oh hello. You must be my big brother." His eyes widened just a fraction. I kept my inner voice warm. Soft and deliberately innocent. "You look sad. Don't be sad. I'm here now. I'll make everyone happy." He didn't respond. Just stared at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. My mother, still exhausted and blissfully unaware of anything dark, mailed up at him, "Lucian. Come meet your little sister, Claire. This is your brother, Lucian." Even the name sounded like winter. He didn't move closer. He didn't smile. He just looked at me with those cold amber eyes. And I could feel him testing me. In our last life, my sister had screamed inside her head the moment she saw him. "Who's this creep? Why is he staring at me like that? Get away from me. Weird." And he'd heard every word from that moment on. He'd hated her. I wasn't going to make that mistake. Instead, I focused all my energy on sending him a single pure thought. "Big brother, your hands look cold. Do you want to hold me? I'm very warm." His breath caught. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then slowly he reached out. My father, Ethan, immediately tensed. "Lucian, be careful. She's tiny." Lucian ignored him. He slid one hand under my head and the other under my body. Perfectly impossible. Gentle for someone who radiated such danger. And lifted me. I looked up at him with my newborn eyes, which probably saw nothing but blurry shapes. But he didn't know that and let out a tiny coo. Then I curled my minuscule fingers around his thumb. "See, I like you already. You're not scary at all." His lips parted slightly. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Prize maybe, or the faintest crack in his armor. My mother cooed from the bed. "Oh my goodness. She already loves you, Lucian." My father didn't look nearly as pleased. He watched his adopted son holding his newborn daughter like a hawk, watching a snake. But he didn't say anything. Because Lucian had never been gentle with anyone. And here he was holding me like I was made of glass. I filed that information away for later. The first few days of my new life were a masterclass in manipulation. Not the evil kind, the survival kind. I learned quickly who could hear my thoughts and who couldn't. My parents, Lucian, and a few key household staff members were tuned in. The doctors and nurses, nothing. So I could think freely around them. I used my inner voice strategically. When my mother cried from postpartum exhaustion, I thought, "Mommy is so tired. I wish I could make her tea. I'll be a good girl and sleep quietly so she can rest." He burst into fresh tears. Happy ones. And kissed my forehead 100 times. When my father came home from work, stressed and grim, I waited until he held me and then thought, "Daddy works so hard for us. He my hero. When I grow up, I want to be strong like him." He literally teared up. The billionaire CEO crying. Because a 3-day-old baby thought he was cool. The staff started calling me the little empress behind my back. Respectfully. But Lucian was the real challenge. He didn't warm up quickly. He'd stand in the doorway of the nursery watching me sleep. His face unreadable. He never spoke to me unless our parents were there. He never asked to hold me again. So I changed tactics. One night, when the house was quiet and I knew he was the only one awake, I sent out a thought just for him. "Big brother, are you lonely?" No response. But I felt him pause in the hallway outside my room. "You don't have to be lonely anymore. I'm here. I know you're not scary. You just pretend to be scary because no one ever protected you, right?" Silence. Then slowly the door creaked open. Lucian stood there in the dim light, his amber eyes fixed on me. His expression was still cold, but there was something else underneath. Something raw. He walked to my bassinet and looked down at me. "You're strange," he whispered. His voice was low, almost rusty, like he didn't use it much. I blinked up at him and let out a soft gurgle. "I'm not strange. I'm your sister. And I'm going to love you until you forget how to be sad." His jaw tightened. He reached down and touched my cheek with one finger. Just the lightest brush. Then he pulled his hand back like he'd been burned. "Don't," he said quietly. "Don't say things like that." But he didn't leave. He stayed by my bassinet until dawn, watching over me, like a guard dog who'd finally found something worth protecting. I smiled internally. Phase 1 complete. Meanwhile, in the other wing of the hospital, my sister was having a very different experience. I couldn't hear her thoughts. Our inner voices weren't linked, but I could hear the actress screaming through the walls. You call this a private room? There's a draft. My baby will get sick. Where's my champagne? I specifically requested chilled champagne. She looks like a wrinkled potato. Are you sure she's mine? The nurses exchanged exhausted glances. The actress had refused to name the baby, calling her it and that thing. My sister, meanwhile, was apparently living up to her reputation. I overheard one nurse whisper to another, that baby hasn't stopped crying since she was born. And she has this glare. It's baby. Another nurse nodded. The mother doesn't want her. She asked if we could keep her in the nursery all night. Said she needed her beauty sleep. I sighed internally, oh little sis. You really stepped in at this time. But I wasn't going to waste energy worrying about her. She'd chosen her path, I'd chosen mine. And mine came with a 5% stake in a billion-dollar company. And a psycho brother, who was slowly melting under the power of my imaginary love. Not bad for a week-old baby. The first real test came when I was 10 days old. My mother, St. Complex Kitten, just like the king of hell, had warned she'd heard through the hospital grapevine that the actress in the next room had abandoned her newborn. No name, no visitors, no interest. So my sweet, naive mother did what she always did. She tried to save everyone. Ethan, we have to do something, I said, cradling me in her arms. That poor baby. She's all alone. My father frowned. She's not our responsibility, sweetheart. But she's Claire's age. They could be friends someday. My mother looked down at me with those big, hopeful eyes. What do you think, Claire? Should we go meet the baby next door? I felt my tiny heart rate spike. No, absolutely not. But I couldn't say that out loud. I could even think it too loudly because my mother could hear me. So I thought carefully. Mommy has such a kind heart. But maybe that baby is sick. Maybe we should wait until she's better. My mother hesitated. Nurse said she's healthy. Just difficult. I tried again. Daddy looks tired. Maybe we should let him rest first. Ethan immediately perked up. Honey, Claire's right. I am exhausted. How about we revisit this tomorrow? My mother sighed but nodded. Okay, tomorrow. I didn't sleep that night. Because I knew my sister. And I knew that if my mother brought us together, chaos would follow. The next morning, my mother dressed me in a tiny pink outfit, pleated with a bow that was almost as big as my head, and carried me down the hall. My father followed, looking resigned. Lucian brought up a rear, silent and watchful. The actress's room was a disaster. Clothes everywhere, empty champagne bottles. The actress herself was on her phone, screeching at someone about a cancelled photo shoot. She barely glanced up when we walked in. Oh, the billionaire's wife come to dock at my misery. My mother, ever gracious, smiled. I came to see the baby. Is she? The actress waved a hand toward a bassinet in the corner. Take her. I didn't sign up for this. My mother's face fell a pity. She walked over to the bassinet and looked inside. I couldn't see my sister from where I was. My mother was still holding me, but I heard her gasp. Oh, you poor thing. You're so tense and your little face is all red from crying. She reached down and picked up my sister. And that's when I finally saw her. My sister in her new body. She was small, taller than me, scrawnier. Her face was pinched and unhappy. Her eyes already sharp, with an intelligence that didn't belong on a newborn. And when she saw me, her eyes went wide with recognition. Then her mouth opened and a thought shot out aimed directly at me. You, how did you? I cut her off instantly. Ew. They can hear us. Keep your thoughts clean. Her face contorted with rage, but she clamped her mouth shut. My mother, oblivious, was cooing over her. She's so tiny. What's her name? The actress snorted. Doesn't have one. You can name her if you want. My mother looked up at my father with those pleading eyes. Ethan, he sighed. Fine, but she's not coming home with us. Of course not. My mother lied. I could already see it happening. My mother's savior complex was kicking into high gear. In a week, she'd be begging my father to adopt my sister. And if that happened, everything I'd worked for would fall apart. Because my sister would ruin it. She always did. So I did the only thing I could think of. I started crying. Loud, piercing, inconsolable crying. My mother immediately panicked. Oh no, Claire. What's wrong? Are you hungry? Tired? I kept crying and I don't feel good, Mommy. I want to go home. Please take me home. My mother looked torn, but my father stepped in. Honey, Claire needs you. Let's go back to our room. We can check on this baby another time. My mother hesitated, then nodded. She handed my sister back to the nurse and carried me out. As we left, I caught my sister's eye. She was glaring at me with pure, undisguised hated. You think you're so smart, don't you? She thought. I smiled, just a tiny invisible smile. I don't think, little sis, I know. Back in our room, I settled down immediately. My mother laughed in relief. She just wanted her mommy, she said, kissing my forehead. Lucian, who had been watching the whole exchange from the doorway, stepped closer. His amber eyes studied me for a long moment. Then he spoke so quietly only I could hear. You did that on purpose? I blinked up at him with my most innocent expression. I'm just a baby, big brother. I don't know what you mean. His lips twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. Liar, he whispered. But he didn't sound angry. He sounded impressed. That night, as the hospital settled into silence, I heard a soft knock on the wall between our rooms. 3 taps, pause. 3 taps. My sister's signal from our old life. I considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. I focused my inner voice and pushed it through the wall. What? Her response came back instantly, sharp and bitter. You win this round. But don't think I'm done with you. I yawned internally. You were never a threat to me. Little sis, not in our last life. Not in this one. Go to sleep. Silence then so faint I almost missed it. I hate you. I closed my eyes and thought back. Soft and sweet as honey. I know. But I don't hate you. That would be too much work. And somewhere in the room next door, my sister screamed. The nurses rushed in. The actress cursed. And I slept like the angel baby everyone thought I was. The next morning, my mother announced we were going home. The Carter mansion is brawling estate, with more rooms than I could count, a private garden and staff who answered to yes, ma'am, and of course Lucian. As the car pulled away from the hospital, I stared out the window at the retreating building. In that room, my sister was still screaming. In this car, I was silent, peaceful and already planning my next move, because the King of Hell had given me one more piece of information. Before I left, the experiment has a time limit. By your 18th birthday, one of you will have to return. The mother gets to stay permanently. So this wasn't just about survival. This was about winning. And I had every intention of being the one who stayed. Don't worry, little sis. I'll send you flowers, fake ones. You don't deserve real. I smiled and let my mother kiss my forehead. The game had only just begun. The game has a time limit. My sister and I are both reincarnated, both fighting for one permanent spot in this world. By our 18th birthday, one of us goes back. And I fully intend to be the one who stays. My sister is in the room next door screaming with rage, already plotting against me. But here's what she doesn't know. I have Lucian, I have our parents, and I have an 18-year head start on being the perfect daughter. Game on, little sis. Game on. The first 4 years of my life were a masterclass in foundation building. If you want to construct an indestructible fortress, you don't start with the walls, you start with the soil. My soil was the Carter family's psyche and I fertilized it daily with aggressive, weaponized innocence. By the time I could walk, my father, Ethan, had restructured his entire billionaire schedule to ensure he never missed my bedtime. The man who ruthlessly liquidated rival corporations would sit on the edge of my plush pink bed, reading fairy tales because my inner voice would consistently project. Daddy's voice makes the monsters go away. I'm so lucky. My mother, blissfully ignorant of the supernatural undercurrents of her own household, treated me like a living deity. And the staff? I had the head butler, the private chef, and the head of security wrapped around my little finger. They could all hear my thoughts, and I made sure my thoughts were always polite, endlessly grateful, and painfully sweet. But Lucian was the masterpiece. In our past life, he had been an apex predator. In this life, he was a guard dog, who had decided the sun rose and set in my nursery. I never pushed him. I never demanded his attention. I simply existed as the one warm thing in his freezing world. When he came home bruised from underground fighting, a hobby our parents despised but couldn't stop, I would toddle over with a damp washcloth. I wouldn't speak out loud. I'd just press it to his knuckles and think, Big Brother is hurting. I'll heal him. I won't let the bad people get him. He would stare down at me, those amber eyes stripping away every layer of my physical form, looking right at my reincarnated soul. He knew I was too smart. He knew my thoughts were too articulate for a toddler. But he didn't care. The psycho brother didn't want a normal sister. He wanted someone who understood him. We had a silent, twisted pact. Then came my 5th birthday, the day the fortress was tested. The actress next door finally overdosed. It was in all the tabloids. A tragic end to a spiraling starlet, leaving behind a 5-year-old daughter with no registered father and no next of kin. I was sitting in the drawing room, playing with a set of antique wooden blocks, when my mother burst in, tears streaming down her face. Ethan, we have the space. She's an orphan. The state will put her in the system. My father rubbed his temples. Sarah, we have Claire. Lucian is about to start university. We can't just adopt a traumatized 5-year-old, because you feel guilty. I stacked a red block onto a blue one. I felt a shadow fall over me. Lucian was leaning against the doorframe, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his dark slacks. He was watching me. I took a breath and broadcasted my thoughts, tuning the frequency to maximum. Sweetness. Mommy is crying. The little girl is all alone? Like a stray puppy? Puppies die in the cold. I don't want the little girl to die. I can share my toys. Daddy, please don't let her freeze. Ethan stopped rubbing his temples. He looked at me, his eyes softening until they practically melted. He walked over, kneeling beside my blocks. You want a Sister Claire Bear? I want whatever makes Mommy smile, I thought, looking up at him with wide, glassy eyes. Lucian scoffed softly from the doorway. It was barely a sound, but I caught the amusement in it. 2 days later, my sister arrived. Her name in this life was Evelyn. She walked through the grand double doors of the Carter mansion wearing a cheap, slightly stained dress, clutching a ragged teddy bear. But her eyes, sharp, calculating, and filled with centuries of resentment, were the same. She scanned the grand foyer, the marble floors, the sweeping staircase, and finally she looked at me. I was standing next to Lucian, holding his hand. I didn't project a single thought to the room. Instead, I forced my mind into a hyper-focused beam, shooting it directly into her head, bypassing the family. Welcome to my house, little sis. Wipe your shoes. Evelyn's jaw clenched. She wanted to scream. She wanted to lunge at me. But she was smart enough to know that playing the victim was her only card. She burst into tears and ran toward my mother, burying her face in Sarah's designer skirt. I was so scared, she wailed. My mother immediately scooped her up. Oh, you poor darling. You're safe now. This is your new home. The game had officially entered phase 2. Growing up with an enemy in your house is exhausting, but it keeps you sharp. Evelyn tried everything to dethrone me. At age 7, she tore the heads off my favorite porcelain dolls and left them on my bed, hoping I would throw a tantrum and look unstable. Instead, I carefully wrapped the broken heads in a silk scarf, walked into the kitchen, where the staff, my loyal audience, was prepping dinner, and thought, Evelyn must be so angry at the world to hurt my dolls. I hope she feels better now. I'll just bury them so she doesn't get in trouble. The head chef wept into the soup, and the butler quietly restricted Evelyn's dessert privileges for a month. At age 10, she tried to manipulate Lucian. She remembered how dangerous he was from our past life, but she fundamentally misunderstood why he was dangerous. She thought he respected cruelty. One afternoon, she cornered him in the garden while I was supposedly napping. Had caught a butterfly and slowly tore its wings off in front of him, smiling a sick, conspiratorial smile. Everything breaks if you press hard enough, she told him, trying to sound dark and profound. I was watching from the second-floor balcony. I didn't say a word. I just thought, projecting it so loud it practically echoed in the courtyard. Big brother, she heard it. Why did she heard it? It was just flying. Lucian didn't even look at Evelyn. He looked up at the balcony, right into my eyes. Then he stepped forward, grabbed Evelyn by the collar of her expensive uniform, and lifted her off the ground. Evelyn gasped, dropping the mangled insect. If you ever, Lucian whispered, his voice like grinding ice, do something disgusting in front of my sister again, I will break your fingers one by one. Do you understand me, stray? He dropped her. Evelyn ran into the house, sobbing hysterically. She tried to tell our parents that Lucian had attacked her unprovoked. But by the time she got to the study, I had already broadcasted my version of the event. Evelyn was crushing bugs. Lucian told her to stop because I was scared. She got mad. Why? Does she lie, Daddy? Ethan sent Evelyn to her room. Lucian got a pat on the back for protecting his sister. Checkmate. Every single time. The years accelerated. By the time we turned 16, the deadline was a dark cloud hanging over both of us. 18. The king of hell's rule was absolute. In 2 years, one of us would vanish, our soul ripped from this timeline, leaving the other to inherit the Carter Empire and the life we had built. Evelyn had changed her tactics. She realized she couldn't beat me at the angel game. I was too entrenched. So she shifted into the role of the tragic, misunderstood overachiever. She threw herself into academics, piano, and ballet. She built a network of friends at our elite private school. She was trying to build an anchor to this world independent of the Carter family. It was a smart move, but it wasn't enough. I didn't just have the family, I had the shadows. Lucian had taken over the underworld logistics of our father's company. He was a phantom, terrifying and untouchable. And he was mine. One rainy Tuesday, I was sitting in the library, reading a book on corporate law. Evelyn walked in, shutting the heavy oak doors behind her. We were alone. 2 years, Claire, she said, her voice dropping the sugary pitch she used for our parents. I turned a page. Hello to you too, Evie. Don't play dumb. she hissed, stalking toward my leather chair. I know the rules. Only one of us gets to stay. You think you've won because you have daddy. And the psychopath wrapped around your finger. But you're slipping. It's too perfect. People are starting to notice how unnatural you are. I looked up at her. She was beautiful in this life. Tall, willowy with piercing blue eyes. But she was still the same bitter, grasping girl who had ruined our last life. Who's noticing? I asked smoothly. Your little friends at school? The ones who only talk to you because they want an invitation to the summer gala. I have a plan, she whispered, leaning in close. I've been doing my research. I know how you manipulate them. I don't know the exact mechanism, but I know. They hear what you want them to hear. And I'm going to expose it. I'm going to rip that little halo off your head in front of everyone. I smiled. A genuine, terrifying smile. I projected my thoughts, not to her, but pushing them out into the hallway where I knew Lucian was standing guard. He always stood guard when I was in a room with her. Big brother, Evelyn is threatening me again. She says she's going to ruin the family. I'm just going to stay quiet. I don't want to make her mad. The heavy oak doors clicked open. Lucian stepped in. He was 25 now. Tall, broad-shouldered, radiating an aura of violence that made the air in the room drop 10 degrees. Evelyn froze, backing away from me. Is there a problem here? Lucian asked, his amber eyes locking onto Evelyn. Just girl talk. Evelyn choked out, her face pale. She turned and practically ran out of the room. Lucian watched her go, then turned his gaze to me. He walked over, leaning over the back of my chair. She's plotting something. I know, I said aloud. And I'm going to let her, I thought, looking up at him. Because when she springs her trap, I'm going to use it to bury her. Lucian's lips curved into a dark, knowing smirk. Let me know if you need a shovel. The climax began on the evening of our 18th birthday. It was a joint debutante ball held at the estate. 500 of the city's elite were in attendance. Champagne flowed like water, crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the ballroom, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. Evelyn was dressed in a stunning silver gown, playing the perfect socialite. I was in blush pink, the picture of demure grace, staying close to Ethan and Sarah. But beneath the surface, the spiritual pressure was suffocating. I could feel the king of hell's gaze. It was a cold, metallic taste in the back of my mouth. The clock was ticking. 11 p.m. 1 hour left. I knew Evelyn's plan. I had known it for a month. She had found a way to hijack the mansion's audiovisual system. She had hired a private investigator to dig up every questionable thing I had ever done. The times I had accidentally locked her in the basement, the subtle sabotage of her piano recitals, the medical records proving she had been perfectly healthy. When I convinced our parents she was mentally unwell, she had spliced together audio of her own desperate pleas for help, painting herself as the victim of a sociopathic mastermind. She planned to project it all onto the massive screens during the midnight toast. She wanted to trigger a public scandal so massive that Ethan would be forced to disown me to save the company's stock prices. If I lost the family's anchor, I would lose the wager. The king of hell would take me back. At 11:45 p.m., Evelyn stepped up to the microphone on the grand staircase. Excuse me, she said, tapping the mic. The feedback echoed through the room, silencing the crowd. Before we toast to midnight, I have a special presentation. A little look into the reality of the Carter family. Ethan frowned, looking at Sarah. Did you authorize this? No, Sarah whispered, looking confused. I stood perfectly still. I opened my mind, casting my thoughts to Ethan, Sarah, Lucian, and the dozen staff members scattered around the room. Mommy Daddy, Evelyn told me she was going to play a cruel prank tonight. He hates me so much. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to ruin the party. Please don't be mad at her. She's just sick. Her mind is sick. Ethan's face hardened. He immediately signaled his security chief. Evelyn smiled triumphantly and pressed the remote in her hand. The massive screens behind her flared to life. But it wasn't her documentary. It was a live security feed from her bedroom. 3 days ago, I had Lucian plant a hidden camera in her vanity mirror. The footage playing on the giant screens showed Evelyn pacing around her room, holding a vial of clear liquid. The audio was crystal clear. Just a few drops in Claire's champagne. The digital Evelyn muttered to herself. On screen. Just enough to make her collapse. Let her look like a drug addict in front of everyone. Daddy will be so disgusted. The ballroom erupted into gasps. The wealthy elite love a scandal, but attempted poisoning was criminal. Evelyn dropped the remote. The color drained from her face. No, she whispered. No, that's fake. It's a deep fake. She set me up. She pointed a trembling finger at me. She's a monster. She's manipulating all of you. You have to listen to me. 11:55 p.m. I didn't say a word. I let a single, perfect tear roll down my cheek. I turned and buried my face in my father's chest. Daddy, I'm so scared. Why does she want to hurt me? I love her. Ethan wrapped his arms around me, his body shaking with fury. Get her out of my house, he roared, pointing at Evelyn. Security. Drag her out of here. Call the police. No. Evelyn screamed, her silver dress tearing as two massive security guards grabbed her arms. You don't understand. We've lived before. She's the psycho. She broke my legs in the last life. No, wait, he did. Lucian did it. She was babbling, her mind fracturing under the weight of her failure. Lucian stepped out of the shadows. He walked slowly up the stairs until he was standing face to face with the thrashing, screaming girl. Evelyn stopped screaming. The sheer terror of his proximity silenced her. You are nothing, Lucian said quietly, his voice carrying over the dead silent ballroom. You were a mistake brought into this house out of pity. And now you are leaving. Lucian, she begged, tears ruining her makeup. You know what she is. You have to know. Lucian leaned in. He didn't speak, but I saw the slight shift in his posture. He knew. He had always known. And he didn't care. 11:59 p.m. The air in the room suddenly grew heavy. The lights flickered. The guests froze. Time seeming to slow to a crawl. The security guards holding Evelyn became statues. Ethan and Sarah were frozen in place. Only Evelyn, Lucian, and I could move. The king of hell had arrived for the judgment. A voice, sounding like grinding tectonic plates, echoed in the space between our minds. The time is up. The anchors have been weighed. Evelyn fell to her knees, looking around frantically. Take her. Look at her. She lied to them. Her love is fake. She built her anchor on manipulation. I stepped away from my frozen father. I wiped the tear from my cheek. The terrified, innocent facade melted away, leaving cold, hard triumph. Manipulation is just another word for effort, Evelyn. I said, my actual voice ringing clear and steady in the frozen room. I spent 18 years studying them, protecting them, giving them exactly what they needed. I built this family. You just whined about it. Her anchor is true, the voice rumbled, ignoring Evelyn's pleas. The family believes the love. Therefore, the love is real. The contract is sealed. No. Evelyn shrieked, crawling toward me. Please, don't send me back. I'll be good. Claire, please. I looked down at her. I told you when we were 3 minutes old, Evie. I'm the one who stays. A black, suffocating shadow erupted from the floor beneath Evelyn. It wrapped around her legs, pulling her down. She clawed at the marble stairs, her fingernails breaking and bleeding. She looked at Lucian, begging for salvation. Lucian just watched her with those dead, amber eyes. With a final, echoing scream, Evelyn was pulled beneath the floor. The shadow vanished, leaving the marble perfectly intact. Midnight struck. The lights flared back to full brightness. The music resumed mid-note. The security guard stumbled forward, suddenly holding empty air. Where did she go? Ethan demanded, looking around wildly. Find her. I want her. Behind bars. She ran out the back doors, sir, the security chief said, looking confused as to how a girl in a ball gown had slipped his grip. Let her go, Ethan, Sarah cried, clutching her chest. Just let her disappear. We're safe now. Claire is safe. I hugged my mother, burying my face in her shoulder. Thank you, Mommy. I'm safe. Because of you. The party eventually recovered. The elite chattered excitedly about the drama they had just witnessed, and Ethan spent the rest of the night ensuring the police would have a warrant for Evelyn's arrest, unaware that she was currently burning in a different dimension altogether. Later that night, long after the guests had left and the mansion had gone quiet, I walked out onto the back terrace. The night air was cool, the gardens bathed in silver moonlight. I leaned against the stone balustrade, exhaling a breath I felt like I had been holding for 18 years. Footsteps sounded behind me, heavy, deliberate. I didn't turn around. I knew who it was. Lucian came to stand beside me. He placed a glass of chilled champagne on the stone railing next to my hand. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring out at the dark treeline. So, Lucian said, his voice a low, rusty rumble. You won. I picked up the glass. You notice she disappeared into thin air, and you're not asking questions. I gave up asking questions about you when you were a week old, he replied. He finally turned to look at me. The amber eyes that had once broken my sister's mind in a past life were now focused entirely on me. I heard what you said, while the room was frozen. I took a sip of the champagne. The bubbles burned pleasantly down my throat. And you said you built this family. He leaned closer, resting his elbows on the railing, trapping me in his space. Is any of it real, Claire? Or have I just been your guard dog for 18 years? For the first time in my life, I didn't project a thought. I didn't construct a perfectly tailored response to manipulate his emotions. I just looked at my psycho-adopted brother, the monster I had tamed with imaginary warmth until the warmth became real. I reached out and gently laid my hand over his knuckles, just like I did when I was a toddler. The game was survival, Lucian, I said softly. But you were the only part one. Didn't have to fake. He stared at me for a long, breathless moment. A faint, genuine smile, a terrifyingly beautiful thing, finally cracked the ice in his expression. He turned his hand over and laced his fingers through mine. Good, he whispered. Because if you ever try to leave, I'll tear this world apart to find you. I squeezed his hand, looking up at the stars. Phase 2 was over. The rest of my life was just beginning. And it was going to be perfect.